Seth Everett. He is kind enough to join us. First off, how are things in the Northeast? You guys were dealing with some school closings and what have you, even a few days before we had to here in Florida. How are things?
Things are good. Everybody's healthy, and that's the most important part. And there are, I believe, 3 in my town, 3 cases. So, we're taking it seriously. We're in quasi-quarantine. I went yesterday, my journey, I went to a drive-through post office, a drive-through ATM, and a drive-through Starbucks. And the Starbucks, for all you Seattle Supersonics fans, was for my family. And even though I protest them, I did get my kids drinks and my wife drinks.
How many of the drive-through people were wearing gloves? I'm always interested when I go out.
And I brought gloves, and I wasn't sure if I was going to put them on. But the post office, I didn't touch the post office. Didn't touch the mailbox. I just had to mail something for my mother. The bank, I wore gloves. And you want to know? So I thought something weird, and I hadn't said this publicly at all, but we had a bunch of coins rolled up. My wife rolls coins.
Right.
And I dropped them off, and I said, "Can you deposit this?" And it was only $2.50. So she says, "You really want to go through all the paperwork to deposit $2.50? I'll just give you $2.50. And I said, "Okay." And she put it through the little thing, and then I'm thinking, where did those $2 come from?
Well, I've already suggested that anybody that has worries about cash can send it all to me. I'll take all your money, whatever you want. If you're worried about that, send all cash.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And then Starbucks, the lady didn't, and I saw the people in front of me. They were giving coupons and clip your thing for your 5th drink free, and they were passing it back and forth. And I'm just thinking to myself, we are doomed. This is never ending. And I saw the pictures of Clearwater Beach, and it made me nauseous. Because why are we doing all these things? Why are we going through all these steps and losing so much money in businesses, and sports is gone, so these idiots can go drink and then get on planes?
Hey, we're in the middle of spring. Seth, we're in the middle of spring break, and they've made some changes here locally. They were talking about closing the beaches. They didn't. Seth, I've been having a lot of fun today, for lack of a better term, because I live in a gated community. We have a community pool. Now, I'm lucky enough that I have my own pool, but they are talking about closing the clubhouse down. A board member, these HOAs, a board member suggested closing down the clubhouse. I've been reading some of the 118 comments to the Twitch audience during breaks because people are freaking out over the possibility that their pool might get closed. So I don't know what to tell you, Seth, because the beaches still are packed. If you go into a lot of places, it's getting a little more serious every day, but you're on to something. Seth?
Our governor said something that if it's not a red flag, he said that they are taking college dorms and they're going to turn them into quarantines. And then they are going to take certain existing building structures, and they're going to use some of the FEMA money to turn them into hospitals, because they are just anticipating being overrun with necessary, not even like the if you or I get it, like necessary things to life-saving stuff. They're talking about building hospitals. You think sports is coming back anytime soon? Not even close.
Hey, Seth, at the end of the day, Rudy Gobert, who did something really silly, and now that we go look back on it, I've kind of taken his side because he wasn't touching the mics to be a jerk. He was actually doing it to show the media at that point that he didn't like the 6 feet, and we were all on the same team, and it worked out horribly. But is the NBA going to end up at the end?
He's a total jerk. I'd punch him in the nose. If I see him, as soon as I got his clean bill of health, I'd punch him in the nose.
I think you're wrong.
You don't touch my stuff. No. I have said this for 26 years. You do not touch my stuff.
Lighten up, Francis.
If I left a microphone at a press table, because I've done that 250 times over my career, and if anybody touched my stuff, I would punch them in the nose.
Any of you guys touch my stuff, and I kill you. We're talking to Francis from Stripes, also known as Seth Everett. But don't you think? Okay,
you guys are on your game today.
Take the Rudy Gobert out of it. Is the NBA going to end up being the unsung hero of this whole thing? Because I watched an interview with someone who's an expert in this, and he literally said, "Yeah, my phone started ringing when the NBA canceled." He goes, Everybody took this serious with the NBA. They didn't listen to a word I said until the NBA canceled. Are they going to end up being an unsung hero in this whole thing in the country, in your opinion?
I think the real heroes are the Kevin Loves, the guys who are just taking all their resources and helping. I think those will be heroes. And when Kevin Loves dribbles a basketball again, I think the world will give him a standing ovation. And there are other players just like that. He's just the guy that came to mind because I just saw an interview with him. I think that's the bigger thing. And to me, the face of it, and how's this for a segue? The face of coronavirus from sports, from my perspective, has been Giancarlo Stanton, who did this cockamamie interview the day after baseball shut everything down. They suspended the season for 2 weeks, and Stanton and the Yankees unanimously approved to stay in camp. They said, we're going to stay in camp. And someone asked Giancarlo Stanton, why would you stay in camp when everybody's going home? And he said, well, that's what separates us from the rest. That's why we'll win the World Series, because we're working harder. And then I said, yeah, workouts in March will make a big difference when your season starts in July. And I said, on top of that, I said, you're spreading it because all you guys are not coming home and eating ramen noodles for dinner. You're going out and you're having dinners and doing stuff, so who knows where you're picking it up. And 48 hours later, one of their minor league players got the coronavirus. And I said, go the frick home. Everybody listen to this because that's the way we get life back to normal. And I want it, Mark, David, you guys want it. We all want life to return to normal, and we want our sports back. But to be defiant when everyone's telling you one thing and you're the best because you're the big bad Yankees, I could easily root for them against them just as much as I'll want the Astros to lose.
Second Yankees minor leaguer also tested positive for the coronavirus.
Fascinating, but they're working out. They're smart.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore. He's Seth Everett. Follow him on Twitter at Seth_Everett. Remember the two podcasts, Sports with Friends and Hall of Justice, though. But the point that Mark was making, Seth, one, we've all talked over the years about where sports places in society. I do think we're going to find out, since this is going to be much longer than the week and a half that sports was put on hiatus after the attacks of September 11th. This is going to be months. And I do think that it really is going to show all of us damn near how dependent we are on sports. I mean, we'll get through it, obviously, but man, it's hitting me even as somebody who makes his living through sports. Wow. Sure. I try to downplay sports all the time, but maybe my wife was actually right all these years. Maybe this is a bigger deal than I'm giving it credit for.
It's funny that you say that because what I have been saying on any platform that I've been on is when this all comes back, we are going to embrace it like there's never before.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
These athletes don't know what they're going to get. When the first time one of these guys, the first baseball game, that is going to be one of the best visuals you'll ever remember. And it'll be the Mike Piazza home run in the ninth inning in the game after 9/11. It'll be that. And I completely agree with you. It's funny, I got into sports for a similar reason. I originally wanted to be a political commentator. That's what I wanted to do with my career when I first got to school.
But you weren't polarizing enough?
No, I wanted
Come on, that was a joke. That was a joke.
Come on, Seth. That's good material. That's good material right there.
But I didn't want to do the paying dues for that field. I wanted to pay dues in minor league ballparks. I didn't want to have to cover kidnappings and rapes and murders and all these awful things, and that's how you kind of go up the broadcasting ladder. And I learned about Dan Rather, and Dan Rather, was an amazing anchor, but he was in the right place at the right time because in 1963 he happened to be the correspondent in Dallas when John F. Kennedy was killed. And I didn't want to have to be there for that moment. I wanted my moments to be something better. And a teacher said to me, sports has the same passion. So you take it just as seriously, knowing in the back of your mind it's just entertainment. And I thought then people would watch or listen because they wanted to, not because they felt compelled to. And I thought that's the beauty of sport. I was never the sports obsessive that always wanted to be the play-by-play guy of the Knicks. Like, I never wanted that. I wanted to do something where people enjoyed the broadcast that I was putting on, and sports was that vehicle.
Yeah, I was the kid growing up wanting to replace Marv Albert. I'm not going to lie. I
understand.
I do think, touching upon what you said at the beginning there, Mark, when sports come back, I think they are going to sell so many tickets.
Oh, no, there's no doubt.
All of these sports. I mean, baseball, which has had an attendance issue the last 2-3 years, there are going to be so many more thousands of people, although economically, we're going to be hit pretty hard. But those that have the money are going to spend it.
And David, you have said something on this show for going back to our last act, at least a decade, that you have been talking about declining attendance. I mean, just in the early days of HD television, before we're into 4K TVs, you had always talked about, hey, it's so expensive. It's got to be a one price includes everything. I do think, the Falcons last year did the cheaper tickets or cheaper concessions, and it worked out. They sold far more. Seth, I do see an opportunity, and it'll be interesting to see.
Did something similar, yeah.
Which team, which sport jumps on first and says, hey, this year we're going to lower tickets by X% as just a thank you, because there is an opportunity here of a disconnect in some sports between fan and team that can be reconnected by what you just talked about. Because you're right, Seth. People are going to come out, and let's see which league is the smartest about how they apply their marketing skills to endear more fans, don't you think?
Yeah, and baseball will have the best option because I think the NBA and the NHL are done. And, they'll next join us in October. You know what I mean? Like, that's next season. But baseball has a year going, and my prediction has been spring training in June, mid to late June, and then an 81-game season around the time of the All-Star break. And I think it would be great. I think it could be a really neat season. One caveat to that, I think that baseball will not be able to have spring training in Florida and Arizona. I think in June and July it gets really hot, especially in Arizona, and I think that will not be healthy. So I think the truncated spring training would have to take place in the actual ballparks where the teams play, and that would be a logistical thing, but that's just my prediction. If it goes into late summer, or mid to late summer, it gets really hot there, and there's a reason why the Diamondbacks play in a closed ballpark. You have to down there; it's hot. You guys know, and so. That's my prediction as far as baseball is concerned, and I've really done a lot of research. Look, if it goes much longer, there's not much you can do. But here's the one thing that I think that no one's really talking about, and this is my suggestion. I just want to be proactive on this. If I'm the NFL, I don't release my schedule. I'm not saying cancel it. I'm saying don't release your schedule until there's a curve here, until we start to see some good news. I said to you guys last week, I'm a big Lester Holt guy, so I use him as the example. The first time you know that the light is at the end of the tunnel is the first time that Lester Holt comes on at 6:30 and says, good news on the coronavirus front. Less cases, less people, better things. As soon as you start to see good news, you will know. You'll see it from a mile away. And that's when sports can return. But then you announce your schedule. Because if you start announcing Packers-Bears September 13th, and you get everybody's hopes up, and then July comes and you realize you can't do it because you can't open training camps, then you'll just break people's hearts all over again. Don't release your schedule.
Seth, I'm not kidding. 10 seconds. Sports with Friends, Hall of Justice.
Well, everyone is in isolation, so I can get any guest I want. Ted Leonsis' son, Zach, is running a digital network for the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards. We recorded it pre-crisis here. And for Hall of Justice, it's Roger Craig Smith and Vanessa Marshall, two amazing voice actors from the new film Superman Red Sun.
He's Seth Everett. Follow him on Twitter at Seth_Everett. The podcast, Sports with Friends, and Hall of Justice. Seth, all the best to you and your family. We'll talk next week.
You got it, guys.
Seth Everett, kind enough to join us once again on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Law Firm hotline, goldberg-law.com. I think baseball starts with the All-Star game. They may even move it up a week, but I think baseball starts with the All-Star game, and then they play 90 whatever games they can fit in. I think the NBA will play a playoffs. I'm not sure about hockey because of the heat and the buildings and all that. But I think the NBA...
Forsland made it pretty apparent that doesn't matter anymore, and I think he's right. They have ice all year round down here, and it works fine, so I think they can have it. Just figuring out how you do it, because...
Well, I don't know if we'll do best of sevens. I think they may do all best of fives.
And I think they're going to have to... I think they're going to have a play-in game, maybe in both leagues. And NBA doesn't need it because there seems to be a clear line of demarcation between 8 and 9. Hockey needs something.
In fact, hockey may have to do 2.
Yes.
7 versus 10 and 8 versus 9.
And I think it's a great little warm-up for everybody.
I do, too, as